Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with special guest Richard Haight, and he's here today to share with us his new book, The Warrior's Meditation, the best kept secret in self-improvement, cognitive enhancement, and stress relief, taught by a master of 4 samurai arts. Now, Richard is best known for his book, The Unbound Soul, listed as one of the best books on consciousness of all times by Book Authority. Richard is also an instructor of martial, meditation, and healing arts, and he is the author of several best-selling books. So let's welcome to the show, Richard Haight.
Thank you, Marianne.
Oh my goodness, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. And I have to ask you, I'm sure this is probably a question you get from everybody. What started you on the warrior's path?
When I was 12, I watched, when I was a little kid, I would watch Bruce Lee movies and Karate Kid and those kinds of things. And ultimately that's what got me to do it. I thought I was very unconfident, and I wanted to have that kind of control of my emotions and my body like a Bruce Lee would, or something like that. And that's really what got me started in the martial arts.
Oh my gosh, I remember that. And that stuff was great because, it was always kind of also a little bit the underdog that, would come up and kind of be in control, not only of the situations, but themselves.
Yeah. That was the real thing, is being in control of, if you're in control of yourself, the situations work a lot better. Yeah.
So I understand you moved to Japan for a period of time. Why don't you share that with us?
Yeah, when I was 24, I moved to Japan. So when I was a young man, I wanted to be a professional fighter. I got run over by a horse, and it did a tremendous amount of spinal damage. And so the type of training that would be required for professional fighting was just not within reach of me anymore. So you'd train for a month, and then your back could go out, and then you'd be out for a month, and you can't make any progress that way. So I ended up kind of being drawn to training methods that would allow me to train without ruining my body. And it ultimately led me to Japan, to a really incredible martial artist that's mostly not that well known, actually. But I was able to train and not hurt my body and gain a tremendous amount of awareness as a result of that training. It's a very different type of training than you would normally see in the fighting circle. So.
It's been my experience that the teachers that aren't always out in the limelight tend to be the ones that, for me, are the most profound and powerful, based on my personal experience.
Yeah, oftentimes they're in it they're not interested in being recognized. They're just interested in the purity of the art. They're interested in the integrity of the art, that sort of thing. So, and they won't stop once their career is over. If you're a professional fighter, once you're 40, you're done, and that's it. But this guy was 72 when I met him, and he was still going strong. So, yeah.
Well, and for our listeners that maybe are not into martial arts, how does that dovetail with meditation?
Yes, this is where it gets very, very interesting. And so the art that I was studying, it turned out to be 4 arts, actually, but I started out with one. It's a samurai art. And the samurai were, they had especially advanced samurai, like master level, or samurai of advanced arts. There were many levels of training different arts that would be under the umbrella of samurai arts, thousands probably. Some of them were very, very high level, and some of them were just sort of, like a caveman with a club kind of thing. So there was a big range of possibility. I was studying the highest levels of the arts, very advanced. And when you get to that level, you're defending, or you're a bodyguard of a shogun, or the supreme general of Japan or whatnot. You're expected to be in healthy condition and fully capable at all times. Modern methods of training ruin your body, and you will train hard, and then you have to take the next day off, and you basically can't, you're sore, you can't move, you don't have energy or whatever. But that would not fit under, that would get you fired back in those days. And so they had to find a different way. And the approach that they took was more along the lines of awareness, not so much. I mean, the physical training was certainly there, but you would never train yourself to the point where you would be incapacitated by it, due to muscle soreness or injury or anything like that. That would just be considered foolishness. So they changed their training, or their training gravitated towards more and more efficiency. And in order to get that level of efficiency, at some point, you start to work with the nervous system. You start to work with consciousness. And that ends up becoming a meditation path. And it's an unexpected avenue, but basically it's not motivated by inner peace. It's motivated by efficiency. The end result is a kind of profound clarity and inner peace. But that wasn't the original goal.
And that's where you discovered the warrior's meditation?
And so, yes. So in my process of training, I was just trying to figure out how I can get to that next level, continue improving efficiency, get to that level, use less and less strength, less and less movement to get the result. And what I realized is that the barriers were not muscular. They were not bone and sinew and that sort of thing, but it was really nervous system responses. So the flight, fight response, tension, and that sort of thing was really where the issue was. And thought itself. Thought is very slow. So if you're facing someone who's highly advanced martial artist, and you're thinking you're way too far, you're behind, you're dead already. And so it just requires a tremendous clarity. And so that's where the motivation for the discovery of the warrior's meditation took place. Yes.
So how is the warrior's meditation different than typical meditation? Because I think people, maybe they get a little confused on just meditation itself,
Sure. Well, there's not a lot of clarity and not a lot of description of the principles of meditation, even in traditional or standard meditations. So a lot of people are not really clear what meditation actually is. And now it's the first thing to clarify is that what we have now as meditation, like popular meditations or traditional meditations, began as renunciation practices, religious practices, which means the idea is that the external world, the body, all of that is somehow maybe corrupt, or there's something wrong with it, and you want to pull inward to find a kind of clarity. And that's why monks lived in monasteries. That's why they didn't participate in daily activities, and they spent all their time eyes closed, meditated in silence in a rather ideal situation. The problem with that kind of meditation, there's several problems with it. If you have the time to dedicate to it, it can work, but it requires a tremendous amount of willpower to stick with it, and most people simply don't. That's why we have a strong association with meditation being a highly disciplined activity. Anybody who's not highly disciplined is likely going to shy away from it. But the other aspect is a kind of inbuilt attitude that there's something wrong with the world, that there's something wrong with the senses, there's something wrong with the mind. And that attitude prevents us from blending awareness with our daily life. There's nothing wrong with the external world. It's the attitude toward it that may be the problem. That was my discovery. And so I took a totally different approach, which was not to try and shut off the senses, but instead change the attitude towards the senses and change the way I used the senses. And in that process, what ended up happening was a profound shift of awareness. And so we could, in the most simplest way, we could say that meditation is a shift from beta wave to alpha wave, brain waves. Beta is the type of brainwave that goes with stress, with task-oriented activities, thinking. It's the brainwave that people live their daily lives in almost constantly. When you're in that brainwave too long, it creates a lot of anxiety, a lot of inner noise, compulsive thinking that can eventually lead to depression. We have never been in a greater state of anxiety and depression in the world. I mean, our population, the prescriptions for antidepressants and anti-anxiety pills are just off the charts. Interestingly enough, both anxiety and depression tend to go together when the brain is stimulated with beta for too much time, spend too much time in a stress state. Another primary state is alpha brainwave. This is rest and recovery. When the brain is in that brainwave, the body is recovering, it's relaxed, it's releasing tension, that sort of thing. most of what people experience of alpha is when they watch TV or they finally reach exhaustion and essentially slump over in exhaustion and unable to do anything. But I would describe that type of alpha as being an unconscious alpha wave. Meditation is a conscious alpha wave, and it could be deeper brain waves as well, but they're conscious. So the difference between what the Warriors meditation does and TV watching is when you're watching TV, you're absorbed in the story. You're not aware. The body is recovering and resting, but you're not really aware. The Warriors meditation, you are fully aware, but the body is also an alpha wave. And it creates a kind of window into the subconscious mind where there's a greater communication between the conscious and subconscious mind. It's a completely different. I mean, everything physically looks the same, but the inner experience of life is very, very different. It's a beautiful place to be. And most people that experience it, it transforms their life rather rapidly, actually.
What a profound discovery. I mean, because that really is a game changer when you look at meditation itself.
Yes, I didn't understand the true relevance of it, actually, until I moved back to America. I moved back to America from Japan, and I began teaching the martial arts. And I wasn't teaching the meditation because I wasn't really sure. I had kind of been assuming that this was a really advanced meditation, something that people wouldn't be able to do, based on things that other people had told me when I explained the meditation. And I had a couple of students who were just very, very persistent about it. And eventually, please teach me the meditation. Please teach me, give us a try. And so eventually I did. We were in a dojo where it's a two-story building. The floor above us is a dance studio. So it's over 100-year-old building. There's no insulation between their floor and our ceiling, which makes our ceiling a giant speaker. So it is just chaos when they're up there dancing and the music's on. You can hear everything. And the ceiling tiles, it's made of that I don't know, white material. That white material is like falling onto the mats, like snow constantly. That's how much racket there was. So it's a lot to expect that anybody could meditate in that situation. I knew I could, but could my students? Using the traditional approach, that would not be possible. They said, let's try. I said, all right, it couldn't hurt. Let's try. And to my surprise, within a few minutes, they were in a profoundly meditative state, not at all disturbed by the essentially heavy metal level decibels going on in the building. And that's when I really woke up. Okay, this really needs to be passed on. This is something that's just generally not available. No one knows about it. And it's on me to get it out there. And it's not something it's actually it's easier than the traditional approach. You would think that by isolating yourself into an ideal situation, putting on some nice background music, lighting some candles, closing your eyes, sitting in a specific position, that would be the easiest thing for beginners because there's less activity going on. But actually, the Warriors meditation, with the eyes open, all senses open, even with the ability to move and all that, is much easier. It's counterintuitive, but it makes sense once you realize it works because it's instinctive. That was the thing that I didn't realize. It's instinctive. So, for example, if you look at the ancient gurus of India, oftentimes what they would do is they would send out their more advanced students once they got to a certain stage to go out into the wilderness, usually the jungle, to live out there for 6 months, a year, or whatever, some period of time. And that's all they're supposed to do. That's where they learn the Warriors meditation. They're not taught it. It happens naturally because you're out in the jungle. Efficiency is vitally important. Awareness is vitally important, but calm awareness, not anxiety level awareness, but calm awareness. Anxiety will get you killed out in nature. Most people die from their own mistakes, not from predators. Now, out in the jungles of India, you've got the cobras and you've got jaguar and a number of other things that'll eat you too. And so awareness, a calm awareness, is what needs to happen. And when the human being is placed into those circumstances for a long enough period of time, naturally a shift occurs. And this meditation it just emerges, even if they were never taught about it. In the modern world, most people won't discover that unless they do something like a vision quest, where they sit out in the forest for like 4 days alone with no food, and then at the end they're in this profoundly meditative state, even if that wasn't their intention. It happens naturally. And what I've done is essentially formulated a way for people to get to that instinctive awareness without having to sit out for 4 days. Basically.
Yeah, I don't know if I could do the 4 days. One spider crawls on me, meditation's over. You know,
That reminds me of an interesting story. My first
well,
teacher was
share it with
72-year-old.
us.
Yeah, my teacher was a 72-year-old man, bald-headed. And we were at a seminar one time in the mountains and just really old building. And he was standing in the middle talking about some principle or technique or whatnot. And all the students, like 150 students surrounding him, sitting and listening. And in the middle of his talk, a spider probably about an inch in diameter came down from the roof and landed square in his head.
Oh, no.
And now, what would happen to you in that circumstance? I can tell you certainly what would happen to me was I would freak out. Or certainly at that time, I would have freaked out. It's not like it landed on his hair. It landed on his scalp, and he certainly knew it was there. But without the slightest hesitation, without the slightest tension, he very calmly reached up, palmed it, held it in his palm, and so he wouldn't crush it, slowly walked over to the window, opened it up, let it out, closed the window, and went right back to teaching as if nothing had ever happened. That's the
Okay,
result of
that would not be
tremendous
the scenario that would happen with me.
Yeah, exactly. So his nervous system was that calm. That's the kind of calm we want in our daily life, so that basically we have all of this stimulus coming into us all the time. We're expected, all these tasks we're expected to accomplish, and it's stimulating so much anxiety. Our nervous systems are constantly stressed. What we want is the ability to do what my teacher did there, where we can handle everything in a practical, functional way, but calmly and clearly, and being spatially aware, being internally aware as well.
Well,
That's what the Warriors meditation does.
That's a really good example. And you know what? One of the things that you've got so many things in your book that I found were really profound. One, you talk about, and it kind of dovetails what we're talking about now, that, when you're doing this meditation, you can get to the place where you really recognize when you're doing that switch from the beta to alpha.
Yes. It's so exciting to me every time I hear a beginner go, I felt it. I felt it. It's a beautiful experience and extremely important to actually notice that shift, because once you start to notice the shift, eventually you can become highly aware of your nervous system state and your brainwave state. And when you notice that you're stuck in beta, you can intentionally shift it over to alpha. It's incredibly empowering.
Yeah, most people are running around like they've got a pack of wolves behind them, So how important would this be? Because it really kind of shifts the energy of what their day's like.
Oh, yes, tremendously. And the interesting thing is there's a constant unseen conversation between entities, between human beings, between animals. It's happening at a nervous system level conversation. You have what you're saying, but then you have the body language, you have the atmosphere of the individual. And when we're in alpha, it puts others at ease. And there's going to be much more oxytocin release, which is like a kind of a bonding chemical, a feeling of connectivity, a feeling of openness and honesty and trust. Because from alpha, it's really hard to lie from a conscious alpha state. I can't do it. I can't lie from a conscious alpha state. And it's very, very easy to see the value in another person. You're not just caught up in your tasks and your aims. So, for example, what is happening when a person is in a task-oriented frame of mind? Effectively, they're in a predatory state of mind. What I mean by that, if you just look at this in like an evolutionary way, or just watch a cat stalking something, their body aims up, their focus is completely on the target, and anything outside of that target is an obstacle that they first are not aware of. And so if you were to watch a cat stalking, a mouse or whatever, you might not realize this, but actually the cat is extremely vulnerable during that stalk and unaware of almost everything else that's going on around it except for that mouse. At that time, you can stalk up on the cat and touch it, and it will not like you for that. That's the first thing. It will not like you for that. But it's a very vulnerable state. And if we think about how we are when we're in a task-oriented state, which is most of our day, when anybody interrupts us or gets in the process of our accomplishment, how do we respond? We immediately feel frustration. We might even get angry. We might try to hide it to be, to not appear like a jerk, but we feel it inside. It's because we're in a very agitated state. We're in an exclusive mindset, and anything that's outside of our goal becomes the obstacle. There's no compassion there, right? There's no bonding ability there. And so what we learn to do is to shift into alpha and accomplish activities through a conscious alpha state, so that our goal is still there. We still have a goal, but it's almost like, instead of exclusive vision pinpointing on the goal is in the center of a very large view. And so that when something comes into that larger view or larger perception, right, awareness, it's not a surprise. And we're in a softer state. We're not in a hard state. And so that allows for an accomplishment without all the anxiety.
I think that that's so, yeah, it's so important, because it really, you can make, you can really decide on the shifts that you're making in your life and not just be thrown out there,
You become, in a sense, we'll say awareness becomes the master of the brain. It's a very interesting, because you can then, your brain is constantly changing to your environment, according to your environment, according to the thoughts and experiences you have. And so as you become aware of this process, you can actually kind of surf life in positive ways. Okay, I would like my brain to develop this capacity. And so you start practicing that during the day. If you want to be more calm and clear, your brain actually changes to allow for that. So the more time you dedicate to calm clarity, the easier it is for your brain to do that. And as that happens, in a sense, you gain a kind of biological control. It's a very strange, I think, concept for most people, because most of us we're kind of caught up in just like the momentum of our lives, might be a better way. That's certainly how I was caught up in the momentum of my life. And it never occurred to me that there was another option.
I think most people go through their life feeling that way. And to have a way to, do this meditation, the warrior's meditation, where you're able to be more of the captain of your ship, I think that's so important.
Now more so than ever. I mean, there's more stress right now than there probably has been in hundreds of years around the world, because we're just in such odd, uncertain times. It's a perfect time for people to delve into meditation. The great thing about the Warriors meditation is it does not take much time at all. A few minutes here and there is incredible, and you can do it on the fly. I tell people early on, meditate one time seated. The first time is seated. After that, you got to stand up. Your eyes are open, and you start walking around in meditation. Within a week, you should be able to walk and jog in a meditative state. Within a couple of weeks, you should be able to drive in a meditative state. And your driving will be better than it was before, because your peripheral vision will be active. You'll start to sense when people are cutting into your lane before you would have ever noticed it before. It's incredible. Whenever you're using the toilet, that's meditation time. There's so many opportunities, but it only takes a few minutes here and there throughout the day to stimulate the brain to make those changes we just talked about. Skipping a day is the worst thing you can do. Good thing is, it doesn't take discipline. You just have to remember to do it. And it's actually a lot of fun. It feels good. You kind of feel high when you're doing it, to be honest.
I'm sure people are going, well, wait a minute, I need to check out this meditation, because life is throwing us so many difficulties right now. We're just, you're right, we're like overwhelmed with stress. And so to be able to have something that you can turn to, what a great resource. And, I have to say, here your book is published at this time. What great coincidence, right?
Oh, it's the most timely book you could imagine. It's a baffling to me how incredibly profound the timing was there. It's perfect for this moment. And so there's the more people that do this, the great thing is the more people that do it, the more people will realize how much more power they had over their lives than they thought they had, and they'll start to spread the word. So it can be very helpful to a lot of people. And there's another book that's coming out right now. I'll be coming out in July, called Unshakable Awareness. That's the next book. And it takes the Warrior's meditation in a new direction to allow people to remain calm under tremendous amounts of pressure. And again, you would think that that's an advanced training. It's really not. You could take a raw beginner. It's in fact, if you take somebody who's done concentration meditation for a long time, and you take like a child who's never done any meditation, and you have them do the Warriors meditation, the child will get it and be able to run with it probably within the first session. The advanced meditator will struggle because they've actually trained their brain in the opposite direction. It's not an advanced thing. It's just instinctive. This unshakable awareness, the advanced, quote unquote, what people would think of as advanced pressure training, can be accomplished just as quickly as and easily as by someone who's not done any meditation, or maybe even easier than someone who's done a lot of meditation. So that's going to be very helpful for our times as well.
So since you touched on that, you define awareness in a much different way than I think most people think. I'd love for you to share that with us.
Yes. Most people, when they think of awareness, they think of things like, well, they think essentially of knowledge. Alcohol awareness campaign, right? Drunk driving awareness campaign, or something like that. That's how they tend to think of the word. But that's actually just an accumulation of knowledge. It's not awareness. Awareness is actually something that is very fundamental. It's a baby, an infant, in a certain way, is more aware than adults are. Adults have more function, but infants have a lot more awareness of their environment, which means their attention is not biased. Their senses are not exclusive. Now, they don't have functionality. As they gain functionality, they tend to forget awareness or lose awareness. Once we're adults, we all have our beliefs and our ideologies, and we have our knowledge, and we have our sense of identity. We've completely lost touch with awareness of being. And so that's what this meditation is doing, is it's still allowing for the knowledge, it's allowing for the senses, it's allowing for all the functionality, but underlaying that, an awareness of our being. And surprisingly, the awareness of being, when it's revealed through all of the accumulated knowledge that we have and abilities that we have, enhances what we have. And so that's how I describe awareness. It's not an accumulation. And so the question then is, well, how did we lose this awareness? If we had it when we were, infants, how did we lose this awareness? It's a very important question. It sounds strange. And then how do we get it back? You don't get it back as an accumulation. It's not like a skill that you would think of. The first thing is that we lost it in the same way that you no longer are aware of your heartbeat. When you were an infant, you could feel your heartbeat throughout your body. And people would say, well, how do you know that? Because through meditation, I know I can feel my heartbeat, my pulse, anywhere in my body, in all places in my body simultaneously. Why can't other people do that? It's because the brain is constantly normalizing information. It's constantly filtering. And it filters based on priorities. So what you prioritize is what the brain will allow to come through the filter. What is considered superfluous or unnecessary information gets edited out. So an example, you can see people that live right next to train tracks. After they've lived there for a month, they don't even hear the trains anymore. They don't notice, it doesn't disturb them. Someone who just came in is going to be completely overwhelmed by the rattle of the train every 5 minutes. After a month or so, the brain has edited out what is considered unimportant information. And so the train doesn't bother you anymore. In the same way, we are not aware of most of the bodily processes that we would have been aware of or would have felt as infants. And the warrior's meditation starts to reawaken that awareness, I guess would be a good way of describing it.
Well, and you also talk about total embodiment method, and I'd love for you to share with us what that is.
The basic concept is that in traditional or popular forms of meditation, it's essentially a retreat from life. You create an ideal situation, and then you meditate for a half hour, however long. But it's separated from your daily life. And the two really very rarely meet. And so total embodiment is what it really means is to bring back that fundamental awareness. So the brain is open to it again, like your conscious daily awareness is open to it again, so that meditation is a seamless part of your daily life. It's not a separated activity. It's actually embodied, biologically embodied. Awareness is embodied in your daily life. That's what it really means.
So, Richard, where can our listeners connect with you and learn about the books that you have and, of course, your upcoming book and be part of your community?
Probably the best way is to get the Warriors Meditation book. In that book, I have a link to a free 1-month trial of daily guided meditations, which I teach every day. So they could join a live session with me in the morning. I always teach at 7 in the morning, or they just have access to a 24-hour on-demand video recording of that daily video. It changes every day. It's very, very flexible, and it's designed to be incorporated into your daily life. I would suggest that the book is probably the best way, because you get that free access to that 1 month trial. And then if you like it, you can just continue.
And you have a website too, right?
I do have a website. It's richardlhaight.com. It's HAI, like Haight-Ashbury.com. And people can, if they're not interested in reading, they can join the Warriors Meditation there, and see some of my other books and that sort of thing. Sure.
My goodness, Richard. I mean, we can talk for hours. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your insight and, of course, your book, The Warriors Meditation, with us today.
Thank you, Marianne. It's an absolute pleasure. If you ever want to talk again, I'd love to talk with you.
Oh, we definitely need to have another discussion, and we'll be doing that again real soon. Well, if you'd like to connect with Richard, again, you can do that at richardlhaight.com for more information. Also, his book, The Warriors Meditation, and his other books are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And of course, you can get it on Kindle. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.